Let's compare accredited investors to qualified clients. So first of all, what applies to each? So an accredited investor allows you to buy into like a Reg D private placement or even buy a viatical, which is basically, getting the cash benefit of, of someone's life insurance policy, sort of similar to like a life settlement, except someone has to be terminally ill. Allows you to buy a DST, a Delaware Statutory Trust. But, the main thing is the Reg D private placement. So what allows you to be an accredited investor as an individual? So, well, as an entity, as long as you have $5 million in assets or more, you are considered accredited. If you're like, SEC registered broker dealer or a investment advisor, whether you're state covered, whether you're federally covered, whether you're exempt reporting advisors, those are the ones that only advise, venture capital funds or up to, less than 150 million of private funds of less than 150 million in AUM. So private ones are like 3C1, 3C7, kind of like hedge funds, could be VC, could be private equity. So going back to as an individual, how do you become accredited, right? So either you make $200,000 a year, or jointly with a spouse, you make $300,000 a year, the past 2 years with the expectation to continue. So that's one. So, and again, there's no like blending. It has to be one has to be fully checked off in order for you to be considered accredited. Another one would be like an active Series 7, which is, general securities representative. 65, that allows you to be an IAR, and 82, that's like the private securities license. That's for, because, that's what we're talking about, Reg Ds here. Another one is if you have $1 million net worth, and it could be individually or jointly with a spouse, excluding your primary residence. So that would mean like the home equity in your home, the equity in your house, right? There's also certain rules, like if you're, a principal or a general partner or an executive of, in the company that's selling the securities, you're going to be considered accredited. Okay, and let's compare that to qualified clients. What the heck is a qualified client? What does that allow you to do? So it's kind of interesting. You being a qualified client allows you to get charged performance-based fees. Sounds like a great deal, right? But basically, performance-based fees, generally speaking, investment advisors can't charge a percentage of growth. They can charge an AUM fee, they can charge a flat fee, an hourly fee, etc. But they can't charge a performance-based fees. They're sort of behaving like a hedge fund in that case, like the 2 and 20. So if you're going to behave like a hedge fund, you better have clients like a hedge fund. So that has a higher threshold. So for individuals, you have to have 1.1 million in AUM with the advisor, or B, you have 2.2 million in AUM excluding primary residence. So you see it has a much higher threshold than an accredited investor. So that allows you to get charged, an example of the performance-based fee is like under the Investment Advisors Act of 40, what's called a fulcrum fee, right? Basically, it's, if you think about like a fulcrum, basically this is how it works. So let's say if you don't beat the S&P, you might not get charged a fee at all. And then if you're within the the confines of the S&P, like if you match the S&P, maybe you get a small fee, and then for every percentage that you beat the S&P, that's where the fee goes up dramatically. So that's called a fulcrum fee. That would be allowed only for qualified clients. That has to be disclosed on ADV and stuff like that. So yeah, hope this helps understanding the difference. Thanks.